do we?
That book.
Dennis? Don't be smart, Alec. It's disrespectful.
I'm sorry,
Rich
I'm
man.
sorry.
Rich man coming to the Lord.
About what can he do to inherit the kingdom of heaven?
Yep. Yep, and we, one of the questions that we ended with was along the lines of, if we lived in that time, and if we were able to witness what this man witnessed, this rich man, how would we have reacted if Jesus would have approached us and said, hey, look, Earl, all you need to do is go and sell your house and leave your wife and come and follow me. In reality, now we all like to over-spiritualize, and this is even what our book said, we all like to over-spiritualize and go, oh, you know, I'd give all for the Lord if that was me. But in reality, when we find ourselves being asked that question,
Well, now I could give up everything, but without Sherry, I'd start that.
See, I was going to say it depends on the man and his state of marriage.
It is actually what that I desire most in my life that I have to take and put back behind me for the Lord.
exactly.
If it's my boat and fishing, hunting, used to I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I'd be hunting or I'd be fishing. This is a good day for fishing and hunting. I mean, you know.
Yeah. I answered that question when we put ourselves in the shoes of the rich man. I've never been rich, so I don't know. I don't know what that would be like to walk away from, say, millions of dollars, big fancy house, you know, the security that comes with. In my world, it's always been week to week, paycheck to paycheck. But even that, we would have to be willing to say, you know what? I give it all. I give it all. And willing to follow you despite what others might say or mock. Has anybody in here ever been, I mean, face-to-face ridiculed or mocked for your Christianity?
Well, I have, and I'm sure everybody has. Pride, before pride cometh a fall.
Yes.
That's a man's words. But that is where it leads all in from. It's pride. What I have, what I want,
Yes.
what I think of you. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had people, you know, they be talking really, really bad. You know, y'all don't need to be saying stuff like that. Oh, that's right, we forgot you're Christian. I said, that's right, I serve God. I'm not a child of God. I said, I serve the Lord. And I said, no, y'all try that. And, you know, y'all might like it. And they be like, okay. But yeah, I had to stand up, you know, in times like that, when you're talking like that. You know, I don't want, you know, I mean, it's right there. I mean, and you got to do something. You know, you don't want to sit there and hear that.
Yeah.
You just, I have to mind not to say that.
Yeah. Exactly.
They kind of get offended. And
You know, and it's okay that we admit our faults, we admit where we failed in front of people. You know, this past week I've been telling you guys about the challenge, I gave y'all a challenge a couple weeks ago about humbling ourselves and doing good to somebody who's done us wrong or you know, and I was telling you guys about the young man at school that acts up. Well, this week I told my coworkers, I said, I've got to do better with this. You know, I admitted to them, I said, look, I'm supposed to be an example. You know, because sometimes they'll say stuff and they go, oh, there's preachers, well, hush, you know. And then I'll find myself doing something, I'm like, they're going to use that against me, you know. So it can go both ways. But in our journey, we've got to stand up, like Laura says, and Earl, we have to stand up for what is right, even when it's hard. And that's part of following Jesus. That is a big part of it. You know, when it's uncomfortable, that's when you know it's right. You know, it's easy to stand in the crowd and everybody here on Sunday mornings and be a Christian, but on the job place, it can be totally different. I'm going to be reading from page, let's see. I think we got through, we talked about it being impossible with man, but being possible with God. Page 48 at the bottom, it says, again, we can easily over-spiritualize these things. And why do we over-spiritualize?
Make ourselves look better.
Make ourselves look better. What else?
To subliminally have the holier than thou aspect.
Why?
Make ourselves look better. I mean,
It makes us, when we over-spiritualize, you know what we do? We place all the effort onto God, and we just stand back, okay, God. You know, it's a God thing. It's kind of like following Jesus in your heart. It's no longer my responsibility. Now it's just all on God, or it's all on, you know, what He can do. And it is everything He does. But if we're unwilling to humble ourselves and submit to His leadership, then we're right back to where we started from. So it really does us no good. It says, again, we can over-spiritualize these things. Once we recognize that it is impossible for us, but possible for God, we might adopt a let go and let God mentality. While it's important to stop trying on our own and begin relying on God, we sometimes use a statement like that to justify our inactivity. But for the disciples, following Jesus was anything but abstract. Peter's statement forces us to see the reality of their situation. See, we have left everything and followed you. How many of y'all have said that to God lately? I'm doing what you told me to do. Doing what you told me to do. I'm doing what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. And you kind of put it back in God's lap like, okay, now what? You know? It says, for the disciples, when Jesus called them to do something, they didn't have the luxury of explaining it away. Jesus was there leading them, and they had to choose whether or not they were going to take the next step in following Him. He called them to leave their lives, their families, and businesses, and they left everything and followed Him. So what is Jesus calling you to do? And I'm not talking about in your heart. The physical. I think that most of us tend to approach this question in a big picture sort of way. Don't think about where Jesus might want you in 20 years. Start by considering the concrete commands that Jesus has given to every one of His followers. I want you guys to think about these. And I want some, not vagueness, not what I'm going to do or in the big picture, some today, something I can do today to answer these questions. It says in question 5, I've listed a handful of Jesus' commands below. For each of these, describe what following this command would look like in your everyday life. Your everyday life. Get up, go to work, spend time with the family, have to put up with, in-laws, whatever it is. Don't think about what it would be like to follow these commands in generalities. Describe what it would look like to completely follow each of these commands in your unique life situation. All right, the first one, A. Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. How do I follow that? Somebody give me a example in your everyday life. How do I do that?
My ex-wife, I have to, with her, she tries to push my buttons, and it really irritates me. But I have to do what the Lord wants me to do, respect. I try to show my respect to her, and she can say some little comment, just wants to, but I just have to hold it and say, God help me. Just help me, not say anything. Sometimes it's best not even say anything.
Do good to those who hate you. How do we do that?
I have a boss at work, and she picks a person, and she'll do nice things, but it's always for a reason, and then she'll do something spiteful just to make somebody or make them react. And it's hard to go in there and smile every day at her, and just fill her with kindness, and you can tell it just irritates her because she wants that reaction, she wants that fight, and she's good at turning it around and being like, well, look what she did. And they know that I've recently, come to be Church of God, and then they'll make something holy, or this, that, and like you said, they want to bring that out. They want to pick that fight with you just because of that reason.
Walk away and pray for them.
Walk away and pray for them.
Best thing I always found out to do is walk away from it. They can pray for them, they can do it.
That's it. KK is in Sherry's room. And to genuinely pray for them. To genuinely, when somebody comes against us, when somebody does something that's hateful, can we step back and whisper a word of prayer for them right at that moment and say, God help them? Because we don't know, and I've said this before so many times, these kids will come to the lunch line at school, and mainly the girls. I'm real sympathetic to the girls because they've got the pink hair and the blackened eyeliner. And some of my coworkers want to make fun of them, and I said, but you don't know. what they climbed out of this morning at home. You don't know what they were treated like before they went to bed. You don't know. I mean, we don't know. And before we can pass judgment, we've got to go, wow, what would Jesus do? Would he go, wow, look at that. Well, she needs to do something about that, you know. Or he needs, you know, look at those filthy jeans. And I'm like, instead of making fun, we need to be feeling empathetic toward these people, you know. Same way with our enemies. You got somebody that hates you, love them. And forgive them. And that doesn't mean you take whatever they've done and you compartmentalize it in the back of your mind and I'll save this for later because I know they'll probably do it again. You know, I'm gonna mark that one down. No, we don't mark nothing down.
Forgiveness is forgetting.
Forgiveness is forgetting it. Absolutely, absolutely. And we've got to know that. In order to love your enemies and to be able to pray for them, we've got to forgive them, move past it, and see the soul.
But so many times you go in there, and if somebody's been so mean to you, and you keep on with love, eventually that love turns that hatred into a kindness towards you because they see that you're not. There may be something going on in their life that we don't see, like you was talking about. But if we keep showing that love and not bitterness toward them like everybody else does, maybe that's what they're looking for an acceptance from somebody.
Exactly.
I have noticed that when I've worked with people that they just keep on, and then one day I got to just be nice to them. And I kept being nice and kept being nice. And I despised doing it, but I kept being nice and kept being nice. But those people, my people that work with me, they have changed their outlook toward me, and now they're more nice to me. Now they're trying to change what they say around me. Now they're trying to do things because they know what I'm about and they know that God's in me. If we just keep on pressing on, they'll want that eventually too.
Absolutely.
You have to be stern with them sometimes too.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because there's this mechanic. I mean, he started off calling me names and stuff, and because he tries to bully everybody.
Yeah.
And I told him, I started off just saying, listen, you know, I'm too old for all this stuff. I'll pick up something and hurt you. I mean, that's pretty much what I said. And anyway, I got his attention, and I told him, I said, you know, because he was all fired up and everything, and I backed off, because first I was in his face. And anyway, I backed off, and I said, tell you what, I'll pray for you, and everything will be okay. Well, the next day or so, he was telling people that I was a good guy, I guess is what you know, and he can't stand nobody. I mean, there wasn't nothing that I done. I'm saying the Lord, you know, just
Absolutely.
I had to get his attention first by telling him, you know, hey, I'll pick up something and knock you in the head with it, you know.
Yeah.
Some people you do. But
Yeah. True. Sometimes, I mean, and I had a lady I worked with that was, she was 7 years old when she finally quit. And she was just, like you said, a bully. She was just, she's a little old bitty short woman, just as mean, and I mean, she would pick on the weaker people around her and work with this one real young girl, and she would just bully that, and I'm like, Donna, why do you keep putting up with her? And oh, but I can't. And I said, stand up for yourself. You don't have to be hateful. You can stand up for yourself, you know. And whenever you did, finally we began to assert ourselves and say, stop it, you know, stop doing that. Stop being mean to us. And then it began to kind of break down the walls, you know. So, like Brittany says here, kill them with kindness. And let God do the work. Put the word out there. If we will apply the word to our lives, it will work. It will work. If the word says it can happen, then it can happen, and we just have to apply it to our lives. All right, let's look at the next one. Make disciples of all nations, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. Now, who is he talking to here? Who's Jesus talking to? Disciples. And he's about to leave, and he says, make disciples of all nations, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. What are we supposed to do with that? How do we make that practical living? John?
I use it in everyday life when I'm working. the guys look at me funny, but they understand what I'm doing. I take little verses and things, and I'll talk to them. I say, this is the reason I'm doing this. I say, everything I do, I apply, and I use it from the Bible.
There you go.
And it's helped me in my walk with Jesus, not only with Jesus, but with the people that I'm around. Because they know that I'm going to be biblical in everything that I do. Every decision I make, they know that I'm not going to be picking one because I like them better than the other. But I base it on the Word no matter what I do.
Anybody else? As a disciple, does that mean all Christians need to be teaching the Word? Absolutely. We should all be about people knowing, just like Sean said, knowing and understanding. And I can't help it. I do the same thing to the women I work with. I'll say, the Word says, and I get it out of habit from Eric, because he does it constantly, does it at home constantly. You know, the Word says that I can do this. The Word says I can't do that. You know, this, and I tell people, well, the Word says, and a lot of times I'll be getting like, what do I care? What, you know? And I'll say that, I don't know, that's just what it says. So this is how I have to do it, you know?
Well, that was our bond line with Seth's friend that comes to church with them. You know, Seth was talking about, he had been talking about something in school. His friend had stood up and said something out of the Bible. When you say things like that, sometimes it's just the weird things that you just happen to spurt out. It's like the Word says blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That one time you say that, it will stick with someone.
Yeah.
And you'll turn around and they'll repeat it back and you're like, somebody was listening also.
Yeah. And the Word says it won't return void. So everything we say that is based on the Word of God will accomplish what God has set out for it to do.
And the reason why the Word won't return void is because the Word itself is life.
Amen.
So therefore, while we're trying to make disciples, if we ourselves are outside pouring out the Word, we are pouring out life, which is something that people can actually grab a hold of. It's substance. It is something that they themselves, the people that we are trying to make a disciple, can hold on to. Now, Taryn can hold on to that story and have a bit more faith in God. You know, view God a bit differently, because he actually got a hold of something that's worth something.
Yeah.
And if we constantly, you know, use the Word in our day-to-day lives, then we are planting life, and we are just pouring out life, and that's why we see the people in the Bible that were the closest to Jesus had success in everything that they did, even if it didn't make sense to be doing what they were doing, because of the life that they were having poured into their life. It was something that they could hold up on, and when the storms of life came, they would withstand.
Absolutely. Anybody else? We've got to teach people. Because the world doesn't know what the Word says. The world doesn't know that Jesus can take a life that is crumbling and falling apart and on all aspects of it, worthless. And Jesus can take it and turn it into something of huge value, eternal value, you know? And that's what we've got to do. All right, C, and this is one that is, if you can't pull a practicality out of this, we need to talk later. Feed the hungry, show hospitality to strangers, care for the sick, visit those in prison. Do we do those things?
The last one's tough.
It is.
I've done that before, and it is scary, and you just don't know what's going to go on, and you can't say your name, you can't say somebody that's with you's name. I mean, it's a spooky situation.
It is.
But then people are so eager, a lot of them are so eager to find help, or they were fooling me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a real bad habit of, and I guess I'd say it's not even a habit, it's a mentality. But you know the scripture that says to not cast your pearls before the swine? Well, I constantly find myself falling back on that, justifying not doing something for somebody.
That's true.
And I'm like, there's a time in my life when I was the swine, you know? And I'm trying to remind myself of the fact that I'm not so righteous and so holy that I need to begin to judge and decide who needs to be visited in prison? Who deserves, when they're sick, for me to go see them? You know? Do we go just visit, as pastors, do we go just visit the tithe payers? Do we go just visit those who attend services? No. We've got to move past that and realize that the flock, as they come in, and even those that don't, we've got to feed the hungry. Whether they blew their check on dope this week or not, if we see an opportunity, because odds are, if an opportunity is before you, God has allowed that opportunity in your life. And you've got to be careful what you do with those opportunities. Shane?
Going back to what you said about casting your pearls before swine, how I have applied that in my life is, I used to work with a bunch of people on assembly line, and you know, you're sitting right next to them all day. And there are certain people that, you know, when I try to speak about the Bible or speak about Christ to them, they just totally disrespected it, totally argued, totally just did not want to listen, did not want to hear it. And then I found that the more I tried to speak to them, the less they wanted to hear about it, and they just got disrespectful, start big arguments. So then that scripture in those moments would come to me. So when it come next time to where I wanted to, you know, I've always wanted to speak about God.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on them, casting my pearls before swine that was going to disrespect it,
Yes.
I would focus it to somebody else that might actually grab a hold of it.
Yes.
Because what's the point of throwing your pearls before swine that's just going to stomp on it? And I have, you know,
Yes.
and so that's where I've always come for that. You know, there are certain people that no matter how honest, how, you know, how you want to be, how you really care for them and want to reach them, they're not going to do, you're not going to accomplish anything. You're wasting your time. When there's somebody out there that really wants to hear it, really wants to seek God. And so I believe we just need to, the people that just constantly disrespect us, quit wasting, quote unquote, wasting our time on them. Pray for them. The Holy Spirit will deal with them, because it seems like the more that I talk to them, the less they hear. But if I talk to someone next to me, they're still hearing it, but they can't disrespect it. So they're still getting seeds. They're still getting, maybe somebody else will come and water it. So a lot of times people get confrontational when you direct it towards them. But I found that when I direct it towards somebody else in hearing distance, it seems to have better effect. That's what I've kind of learned in my experience.
You know what the word says, to take and dust the feet, to knock the dust off your shoes and go on.
It does.
To someone that would be receptive.
It is that way, but what I'm saying for myself is for me not to, before I even get an opportunity, automatically prejudge them. I'm not going to talk to them because they're, you know. So we got to be careful. There's a fine line.
But you know, when it's somebody that you should talk with, don't you have a nudge from God to
That's
know
what I'm saying, yes.
you're
Yes.
I'm supposed to talk with Omar. You know, I just feel this longing to take and talk with him from my heart.
Yeah.
It's not me trying to say, hey, I'm a Christian here.
Yeah. You need to listen up.
Yeah, you need to listen to me. But I'm talking about, and God's already got him prepared for me to come and talk with him.
Absolutely.
A lot of the time, it's one of those, I'm trying to focus on walk not after the flesh, walk after the spirit, in a manner to which it doesn't make sense to me to treat the people that treat me bad, to treat them well.
It doesn't.
And it makes no sense to me at all, but it's because I'm trying to justify what's spiritual with my physical mind. And it's like trying to wrap your mind around the thought that God's always been here.
Yeah.
Our human physical mind just cannot wrap its mind around something not having a beginning. And so really just trying to not justify the spiritual, my spiritual walk with my physical walk. See, because God uses a word there, walk, after the spirit. So he's saying physically we have to do something for the spiritual world. But we can't justify it through the flesh. And you know, it's the same thing, we're trying to reach the people. And it just doesn't make sense to me that I would spend my time on somebody who seems like they are just throwing it away, and to somebody who treats me badly. And I'm trying to get in a routine of stop justifying the spiritual with my flesh, because it's never going to make any sense.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I think that, you know, it goes to say that you have to walk by faith, because it won't seem right. And when we're trying to reach out, it will never seem, because it just doesn't make any sense. It's like giving all you have to have life. And it's just like, and it's that way throughout, you know, it's really been a reoccurring theme in my life. It's just quit trying to say the flesh is right here. It's got to be the Spirit. Just walk by faith.
Okay, very good. D, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, but lay up for yourself treasures in heaven. You cannot serve God and money. Where's the practical application to that? Shane?
Got an example in my life. I was working at White Rogers, and we was working 12-hour shifts. And I have to work 2 Sundays, and then I'd be off 2 Sundays. Well, I was really coming into God, you know, and I was really studying and getting close to Him. And one morning, I went into work at 6 o'clock in the morning. And about 8 o'clock in the morning while I was reading, you know, I had a little pocket Bible. My machine ran for 18 minutes. Those 18 minutes I was reading my Bible. While I was reading it, something just spoke to me and said, you know, you should be in church right now. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what, you're right. I should be in church. So I went to my supervisor. I said, listen, I'm fixing to leave. I'm fixing to go to church. I won't be back. I'm going to go to church. So anyway, long story short, I went to church. And when I went to church, the pastor, Ira Brokaw, he was preaching on that same thing. You're going to serve God or serve mammon. What a coincidence, huh? So I made that decision. I said, well, Monday when I go back into church or to work, I'm going to tell them I won't be back on Sundays. So that's what I did. I went Monday. I talked to a human resource lady, and I said, I'm not going to be here on any Sunday anymore. I said, I'm going to be in church. And, you know, she said, well, you know, I respect that you stand, but how about you go to church, and then, you know, after church, come back to work. And I said, well, you know, my Bible tells me it's a day of rest. And I went on and said, you know, I just feel like that I need to be off work on Sundays. She said, okay. So I went and I, you know, told my coworkers, I said, well, I won't be here. They asked me where I went and where I was going. I told them, and a lot of those people came up to me, what are you doing? You know, you've been here so long, they're going to fire you. I had, you know, some of my best friends, I was saying, you know, look, you're going to lose your job. God give me a gift of faith. You know, I just knew that it would be okay. And I told them, I said, man, if I lose my job, that's fine. God will take care of me. Long story short, everybody was saying you're an idiot. Well, come to find out, a couple of months of that, Human Resources called me up front. I was like, well, here we go. I'm getting fired. She said, well, I've done some looking, and we found you another job. It's 8-hour shifts. You'll be off on the weekends, and you're going to make more money working, you know, in a certain department. So God blessed me with more money, give me, you know, an 8-hour shift. The 12 hours was killing me working nights. I got to work 8-hour days, Monday through Friday, and started making more money. See, I could use that. You know, people would come up to me and say, I told you, you know, God's got it under control. You know, that right there was something that could show a lot of people. If we just stand up and have faith in God, well, you know, that can move mountains. Because there's no telling how many people, you know, may not have applied that to their life, but that really reached people. They say, well, man, what he's been saying this whole time is true. You know, so we can reach people in those circumstances if we just stand. Even when it looks bad, if we just stand.
Great. Anybody else? Not serve God and money.
Hospital, like, if you work weekends at the hospital, not only do you get paid extra for the fact that you're working, you know, just the weekend, but you get paid extra for, like, the shifts that you work during that time. And the hospital does 12-hour shifts. On the weekends, it's impossible to get an 8-hour shift or less. And since I've turned 16, until now, I have refused to work Sundays. And every job I've had has been one of those jobs where the weekends and Sundays, you get paid good money to work. But I've continually done that, and, you know, there have been times when I completely have not had a job, or, you know, haven't been able to work. But I believe that having that and setting that standard, and, you know, up front when I get my interviews and stuff, I tell them, say, look, don't expect me to work on Sundays. I know people are still going to be sick on Sundays, but there are other people who can work that shift who don't feel that that's something they need to do. And it has allowed me to be blessed in the fact that I have family